welcome back to Season 3 of the Elite Show with John Alite. I'm Kevin Donaldson. We're sitting here with two very special guests. Mike Failace is going to be our guest co-host today. And, of course, Charlie Cifarelli is in studio.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here.
Hey, guys. Nice to see you again.
Hey, listen, it's always fun seeing you guys. Well, you not so much, but it's great to see John and Charlie.
Mike and I see each other way too much.
Let me say, Mike, do you notice that he's got a lot of makeup on today?
I did notice that.
I just want to start it off the right way.
It's funny, too, because now when we do our podcast, he's going to make me put makeup on him.
Yeah,
I actually have a photo of Mike getting makeup put on him.
Oh, I got photos of you, too. Don't you worry about it.
Anyone's with heels or
they'll be
just
up on-
makeup?
You know, it's funny because his G-string was sticking out of the back of his pants.
I'm the one that's supposed to have the makeup. I'm the older one. He's younger. I don't know why you got the makeup. They should be putting it on me.
Because I look like a gorilla. I look like I'm homeless.
Grizzly Adams with makeup.
Yeah.
Charlie, thanks so much for driving all this way to come and sit with us. And you got an amazing story. All right, you're sitting there with your book, I Am a Star, which relates to one of the most important souls in your life, which is Star the dog. So I got the date written down because I never remember. It's August 13th, 2012.
Exactly.
That's the date that your life changed forever.
Yes, it did.
So I invite our listeners to go out and look at the video of Star the New York Pitbull. And what's the video that
They
was
can
made?
find it right on Star the New York Pitbull Facebook page. It's the top of the page.
I warn everybody.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, make sure you have some tissues with you because it's hard to watch.
It took me several times to get through it because it was one of the hardest videos to watch. I like dogs more than I like people. Mm-hmm. Star was a dog who belonged to a homeless man. The man's name was Lech Stankowitz or something like that.
You got it right? Yeah.
Yeah, Stankowitz. And
Someone did their research.
Yeah, well, I looked. I can look up Wikipedia just like everybody else.
Star the dog on Wikipedia.
Yeah. So this homeless man has this dog. He's having a medical event. Cops show up. They have to render medical attention. The dog's in the way. Dog's doing its job, protecting its owner. Somebody's got to lose.
Now, we had this conversation with Charlie also. The cops were also doing their job.
Correct.
They had to, and that's why it's a touchy situation. Like, the dog is protecting his owner, but the cops have to render aid to it. So who's really at fault in this
It's
one?
a wicked situation, and it's a no-win situation.
First of all, I'm an animal lover, so I think we all are. Cats, dogs, any animals, horses, so for the people that are animal lovers, this is more so such a heartfelt story. But for the people that don't really know exactly about Star, can you give them a little overview of that story?
Yeah, it's a story of a New York City dog that had defied the odds multiple times. She was born in the Bronx on March 1st, 2011, wound up in a kill shelter, got adopted out, was placed with this homeless man. He had seizures. He came from Poland. It was his trusted companion. He went into a seizure, and the dog started circling to keep him safe from going into the street with his head, to alert people. And the police were on the scene quickly, and they wound up creating a perimeter, but a lady didn't follow the directives of the New York City police officer. She got in the area, and Star ran her off, and then turned around and started charging the cop, who pulled the gun out and shot her in the head. And she bled out at that point, and it was headlines all over. I mean, it's the first time videotape a New York City, a dog being shot in the head with all the people there.
Now, you weren't in New York at this point,
No,
right?
I was not. I was. I'm a New York guy with the accent, obviously. We'll get into it later. I wound up out in Nebraska. I put myself in self-imposed exile. I did it. I wound up out there and was in corrections, and then I started the trash business. And one of the things I always would think about is New York. And at my desk, I'd always see, hey, what's going on in the Big Apple? And this video came up, police shoot and kill Pitbull.
But what I didn't realize is you and John have some sort of weird... We all at this table have some sort of very weird strange connection.
Yes. I can run through the connections.
Yeah, to take us through the connections.
All right. So then we have my Albanian brother over here, Mike.
He's only Albanian when it's convenient.
Yeah, and so Mike's dad owned Lamar's, and my dad and his father were friends, and my father brought me over to his father originally when he was opening Hammerheads. And his father helped my dad along to open up the club with some advice about the rock club business and the nightclub business. My dad hit it off with his father, and me and Mike what me and your father spoke about a month ago for a while. As far as you, Kevin, you had the situation with a shootout where a guy shot you to the ear, and the first cousin happens to be a good friend of mine that was a dentist with the same name as Anthony Vacatoro. So it was a Jersey guy, and coincidentally, they were telling me the story, and I said, I know the guy that shot you. I know the day it happened, and we went through that conversation. And me and Charlie have a lot of mutual friends in Speaks, Channel 80, the Basile family in Merrick, the Riders, Greg Ryder, Hunter Adams, and a bunch of other guys, the cop, Mike, that was involved in a fight with me at Channel 80 back in those days, and mob guys. So we all have connections actually since we're very young guys, and now we're in a different situation in our life. You trying to save the dog's life, which you did for a while, and you guys doing great work with the Suffering Podcast, and it's a small world, it's a circle. And for the people out there, it's amazing that we all are in touch with each other one way or another, and we get to tease Kevin a lot now. So this is...
Why is that? Why am I everybody's whipping boy?
Because I'm usually the whipping boy, so I'm actually enjoying this.
And since we found out that Mike's also part Albanian, we had to team up on you.
So, and then there's the fourth member of this crew that unfortunately couldn't be here due to some technical difficulties.
Fifth member.
The fifth member, which is Michael Dowd.
Yeah.
So Michael Dowd was the famed dirtiest cop in New York City out of the 7-5. And Charlie's been in the area of the 7-5 a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
Mike and I have a friend who sits on our nonprofit board who's some family member. We haven't really figured out some family member was an associate of Mike's in the 7-5.
In the 7-5, yeah.
It's just such a small world.
Then he got transferred to the 7-5 also, the guy that's on our board.
He got transferred.
Right after, well, not right after, but years after.
Which Mike Dowd's name was notorious throughout the 7-5 for what he did and kind of tarnished the badge, which now he's since changed his life, but it doesn't keep me from...
Well, I'll tell you again how small that my good friend Titi, he did 2 chapters of my last book, Mafia International. He happened to call me when we were all together down in Florida, and me and Dal were in a car together, and he was on speaker in my car, and he's like, Bo, I go, what's going on, T? And he says, I was just watching the 7-5. I go, you got to be kidding me. I go, you know who's in the fucking car with me now? He goes, who? He goes, Mike Dowd. And he starts going into all his friends and names from the hood there, from Brownsville and East New York. And Mike and him were shooting the shit back and forth about all the guys they know. And, it's funny. I mean, things change. TT's on a good path. He's trying to do the right thing for kids in the neighborhood. And, so we were talking about that. He happened to call and Mike was in the car. And they went back and forth with the name. So,
but
things like that just happen like for a reason sometimes.
100%.
It just pops up. It's amazing.
Well, it shows there's more things that bring us together than tear us apart.
Absolutely. But
Charlie, you put yourself into self-imposed exile, but what was the reason you had to leave New York?
Here it is.
Because you knew John.
Well, here it is.
There was a mob hit on
Here it is. I mean, I grew up and I was... that thin line was always there, good and bad.
Well, you stayed with Louis Casman for a while, right? The brother, too?
I was best friends with Louis Casman's brother, Scott.
I'd love to get him on the show one day.
He wound up getting shot in East New York. Here's the reality. I could have stayed in New York, but I wound up burning my bridges there. I wound up getting on drugs. I wound up in the 7-5, where the drugs were sold, and I wound up really whacked out. And I got clean. And
didn't you say it was pain pills?
Started as pain pills.
But you were in good shape. You were always a big guy. But you're still in good shape.
Yeah, I always felt that was my MO. If I stay in shape, I don't look like that, drug addict.
Yeah. You got to look at your Instagram. So Charlie recently posted some pictures, and he was jacked.
Oh,
jacked. He had this tiny little waist and these broad shoulders.
But you used to work the doors of some of the clubs.
Malibu. I used to work in Malibu.
Yeah.
So can you imagine, guys? I'm growing up. I got a father that's a teamster. I got a father that's in the concrete business. I'm with family members all the time, and I know what these guys are doing. And I'm making that decision in my head all the time. No, I'm going to just go and do things right. But unfortunately, I wound up whacked out on the drugs, got clean, and...
Well, that's the important part. That's the important part.
Got clean.
We all trip from time to time. It's how we pick ourselves up.
But didn't your dad... and somebody else in your family or your dad's friend get involved in trying to hit a cop or something?
Well, John, that's the way life started for me. My dad in 1956 was what the infamous Joseph Imbruglia that I was introduced as I was older is the godfather to me. In 1956, my father, with Joseph Imbruglia, went into a cabaret in Queens and made the front page of New York City Daily News that day because the cop came in and they weren't going to stop what they were doing. And the gun misfired when it was put in the cop's stomach, and my father went away for that. Yeah. And
so that's another thing you have in common. His father was on the front page of the Daily News, so were you.
Yeah, so was my father, believe it or not. My father was with the Red Kelly back in, when they were kids. And Red Kelly and my cousin, when I say Uncle Max at the time, had a problem with a cop. And the cop ended up shooting Red Kelly 5 or 6 times. That the cop was involved, obviously in those days on the street with different people and Vito Genovese and these guys. And they hit the front cover of the newspapers because the cop was getting a beating and he ended up shooting Red. Shot at my father and Max. Red went to prison. They took off and they were on the front cover of other newspapers too. So, there's a lot of mixed news together with our families and going in the right direction. Then later on, you become a correction officer.
I do, John. And
by the way, keep me off the cover of the New York Daily News.
Oh, listen, when we were in Florida with them.
Yeah, we came close.
That one picture that we got. It was,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was John, Mike Dowd, Matt Cox, you and I. We didn't belong there, brother.
Yeah, we put numbers on the after that.
There was about 50 years of prison.
I'm sure the FBI was there somewhere.
There's about 50 years in prison sitting at one table. But you go out to Nebraska, Charlie.
I do.
And you create this new world.
New life.
Now how did you pick Nebraska?
Well, here's how I picked Nebraska. I met a girl in Long Island that's family was from Nebraska. She was a quick study of me, and she said, look, you're not going to live a long life in New York. I could just tell you're a wild man, and the situation was I was dating her for a week and I got to her apartment. There was a set of roses there and she initially thought it was for me and they weren't. So, I got serious after a week. So shortly after that, I wanted to know who the roses were. And this was the defining moment that I was done with New York. We went down Merrick Road in Amityville or Massapequa, about 35 miles an hour. And I seen her face look long and drawn out. And she goes, that's my ex. I said, that the guy that sent the roses? And she said, yes. And she got one shot at the brake. I jumped out of the Blazer. And when you jump out of a vehicle at 27, 25, whatever speed limit it was, you don't stop rolling.
Right.
I mean, I was being rolled like a rag doll. And all I could see is the cars coming up on Merrick Road and they're going swerving. I got the wind knocked out of me. I was pretty done. But I got up. They were going to call an ambulance. I got up, got into the travel agency, and I set that guy straight about the roses.
I never jumped out of a car, but I pushed 2 guys out of a car at about 50. Really, on Hempstead Turnpike. One of them was because he stabbed a couple of guys, and we told him don't get into a fight, and and it was snowing a little bit. It was about 1 inch of snow, and he broke his nose and his arm when we tossed him out. And we joked at the time. Because, you're young and you don't care what's going to happen to the guy. And he was kind of a friend of ours. He stayed with us. And he bounced. And we joked about the way he was bouncing because he was more. But we were going about 50, 60. And a friend of mine, Keith, was in the car at the time. And Greg was in the car, Ryder, actually. And Greg's the one that looked at me and says, tell him to get out. So, we told him, get out. And he goes, I ain't getting out. I says, and he was a big kid. And we ended up throwing him out. Another guy, we tied a cord around his neck and we threw him out. We dragged him till the cord broke. But I got to tell you something on a serious note. You're still dressing slick. I was looking at those shoes, those Louis Vuittons.
Yeah.
The jacket.
Yeah.
I said, man, maybe he got the jacket out of my closet. I like that jacket.
Well, listen, I got a fashionista at home. I mean, I would never know this stuff. I mean, I'm a correction officer by trade and a garbage man. So I have no idea. So I got schooled a little bit.
Yeah.
This is dressed up for me. I actually put a clean T-shirt on.
Me and you must have dressed together because we got the T-shirt under it and we have the shirt. These guys are dressed pretty good. Kevin's dressed.
You make me do this stuff.
But see, Kevin's got the high heels on. So that, it doesn't show under the table. But getting back to you pushing your friend out of the car. Do you consider, like me, a friend?
Of course.
I never get in the car with you then.
But listen, seriously, at the time, we were told stop getting into these stupid fights. by, mob guys, because we were getting into a lot of fights, and there was a lot of us that stayed together at that time. When you're younger, you got 20 and 30 guys constantly out with your clubs, and we were warned, and we tell the guy that was with us, his name was Mondo, we said, listen, do not get into another fight in here. And I says, or it's my ass that's on this. I said, stop getting, and he didn't listen, and he ended up stabbing a couple of guys, and that was the reason why. Well, I don't know if he was the actual stabber, but the fight started from him, and a couple of guys ended up getting stabbed. So I looked at him, I says, well, if I'm going to pay for this, so are you. I said, so now get the fuck out.
Time to roll.
Yeah.
But was that like you, Charlie? Did you was the crowd that you hung around, or was it just you solo getting into these little scrapes and scratches in New York?
Man, I've always been a little bit of an outlier. I remember guys in New York thought, Charlie, you got your own brand of mob. I really just was my own guy, man, my whole life.
But you stayed with some tough kids.
I did stay with some tough guys. Like Lenny, we talked about it earlier.
Lenny,
I hung out with guys. Lenny LaPaglia was one of the toughest middleweight boxers.
Yeah, he was a tough guy.
This guy was from Chicago. This was a tough guy. He'd be in East New York with me. We'd be getting high on drugs. Next night, he'd be fighting in Madison Square Garden. This guy was fighting for title shots.
He was an incredible fighter. These
were tough guys, man. These were tough guys.
When you transition out to Nebraska, that level of tough guys that you were around, was it because I have a strong belief that your personality attracts certain people.
Sure.
Did you attract it once you went to Nebraska?
Well, you know what? You wind up going. I thought I was going to go to Nebraska. I was going to farm. I was going to do a Series 7, be an insurance or a financial guy. No. The only place that would hire me was the Department of Corrections. Because believe it or not, I had a clean record. I had some police interactions, but it always got swept under the carpet. Whether the attorneys did it or New York just squashed it, I became a correctional officer. They watched me. With the heavy New York accent, guys like Jim Conforti, I remember he was in the penitentiary. Hey, Bison, don't talk to me, man, here, But I did attract guys, and I wound up working in some of the worst places the penitentiary had to offer.
Well, that probably served you well, working with some dangerous creatures inside the penitentiary.
You're used to it. You were used to our streets. You were tough yourself. You were involved with mob guys. Your family was. So it was nothing for you. That really makes sense, you going into,
It was like a walk in the park at that point.
Yeah, because you can see you're interacting, your comfortable environment.
And you know that, John, it's crazy in penitentiary. Guys that serving forever in there, screaming going on, working the hole, the control unit, which worse than the hole.
The control unit. Stop with what's the control unit?
A control unit's for guys that were sentenced to the segregation, and now they've continued to either murder, stab, assault, or attack other inmates. So now we got to put them in a control unit.
Shanks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you got put in charge of the control unit.
I was down there. I was the corporal at that time. I didn't move up past that rank in the control unit, but I was the corporal. I would become the caseworker, which is sergeant level, and then move past that. But at the time in the control unit, I had my arm put inside a hatch one time. I gave an inmate a pen to sign a document. He played possum. He knew I was young in corrections. He played possum. He was yawning. And in a moment's notice, he got as agile as a cat. And he grabbed my thumb. And he put my arm in that hatch. He had his legs. He pulled my arm in that hatch. You can't slide the doors because they're horizontal. Now my arm's in the hatch. He's going to try to break it. Now my staff has got to throw tear gas in there. And he's not letting go, man. He's just not letting go. So I had to deal with that. I had to learn what these guys can do.
I did that to a guy when I was in a unit, and the guy was breaking my balls, though, a different situation when my wife had cancer. And I was in the cell, and he seen me crying. He was abusing me, and I cursed him, and I made fun of him, and I didn't stop because I was steaming with him. And I conned him to come over to the hatch that I was going to say I'm sorry after a week or two. And he came over, I had a cup full of piss. I pissed in it. When he came over, he says, oh, now you want to be a bitch up to me. Oh, and I'm like, come on, I'm sorry. And I threw the piss in his face. And then you know what happens after that. I couldn't eat for a while because I had other guards that were talking to me. He said, don't eat. He's spitting in your food. He's doing this. He's asking friends of his. So you kind of fuck yourself at the same time.
Was he a friend of yours too?
No.
just checking. I'm trying to gauge.
But some guys aren't. You work like in any field. You got some good guys, they're good guards, and they're doing their job, and then you got scumbags. This guy was a scumbag.
You get that in any field of work.
Yeah.
You get it anywhere.
Yeah. I say this in anything. You're right.
They say 5 to 10% of your staff is terrible.
I mean, you got to be a heartless fuck to do what he did, knowing you're not. It's not about me. It was about, at the time, I have sons or babies, and mom had cancer. You know, you're going through and you want to abuse me. So, you know, you're going to get back at them somehow because you're sitting there 24/7 in a solitary cell. You got nothing else to do but think how you're going to get this guy. So,
But you probably, to correct me if I'm wrong, you might have sympathized with the inmates because you could have,
yeah.
you're one step away from being there.
Listen, that was the problem all the time. The inmates knew. They couldn't understand how I wound up having the badge. And I just did my job. It wasn't personal. And I got to tell you something. A lot of times, that's why I didn't get gassed or feces thrown on me, because I would tell the inmates, look, I didn't put you here. I didn't put you here. But at the same time, you have to respect me as a human being, and it works two ways.
Human feces thrown at you.
Sure.
I don't know if I could handle that. See, there was one time as a cop, and I've stepped in dog shit my entire life, like 50 times. Yeah, it's good luck for the dog. But one time I stepped in human shit as a cop, I ended up throwing my shoes away because I couldn't walk through enough puddles, enough wet grass.
but it happens a lot. You know? And you know, like after I did that, then I got, you know, you get what's coming to you. They come in with the goon squad, and, you know, we call them the turtles. They come in all shielded up. They gave me a beat, and they 4-pointed me.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, here's the other part. I spit in my face, and then they got you tied like that, 4-point, and you're pissing yourself because you got to go to bed. They won't let you. Some guys are shitting themselves. I didn't. But, you're pissed because they don't let you go for how long they kept me there. 12
Kev,
hours.
just getting back to what you were saying, human feces. One of the guys I used to work with, he used to call it shit out of water. He couldn't, like, you go to these sick calls or something and someone shit their pants, he had to run out. He couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's
Shit
bad.
out of water. It was,
Psychologically, and I'm sure the prisoners are well aware of this stuff, psychologically, what that does to somebody working on the other side just screws up their brain. And mine wasn't done intentionally. Somebody was having a medical issue, but it still screwed me up so bad psychologically. I could never wear those shoes because it was always in the back of my head.
But you're a good-hearted guy, and go back to what we brought you in for, and some of these other things we can have you back. And when Mike Dowd's here, we'll have you back again, and on their show. Your heart is why we had you here, because of Star, the dog, and I can see you as being a decent human being with these guys in jail because you're a decent human being, and more so with this dog.
Well, John, I got to tell you something. That's what drew me to you, too, because I didn't know you on a talkative basis. I knew of you. I knew you in the neighborhood when I was in the neighborhood in the clubs. I heard you talk. I heard you talk about the kids and what you want to do going forward. And I said to myself, there's a version of me right there. There's a version of me.
Hey, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. We talk about BetterHelp a lot on this show. And this month, we're discussing some of the stigmas around mental health.
For example, some people think you should wait until things are unbearable to go to therapy, but that simply is not true. Therapy is a tool to utilize before things get worse, and it can help you avoid those lows. It's like you don't take your car to the mechanic when it stops. You try to get the problem before it gets to that point.
And we've been taught that mental health shouldn't be a part of a normal life, but that's wrong too. We take care of our bodies with the gym, the doctor, nutrition. We should be focused on our minds just as much. Hey, I had a rough life, and over the years, I'm not shy about it. I go to therapy, to Kevin, and I discuss it all the time with you. And BetterHelp is nothing better than that. You can just get on the phone, reach out. You don't have to leave your house. The weather doesn't matter. The time doesn't matter. You always have a 24-hour access.
I'm a big believer in therapy. Ever since my shooting when I was a police officer, I've been in and out of therapist's office nonstop. And I'll tell you right now, without those therapists, stuff could have gone really bad. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anybody on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. And you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours.
Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp and The Alite Show. Listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/elite. That's betterhelp.com/elite. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/elite. BetterHelp.
As a guy, I was robbed of a childhood. Okay, a lot of guys don't admit that, or they're toxic masculinity. They won't let them admit that. I was never a kid. In my house, I was always a whipping board, or I had to grow up quick. Okay, so what happened was, in the back of my mind, I said, I'm going to have my day in the sun one day. one day when I get out of this prison work, death row work, trash work, my retirement, what I'm going to do is have some type of fun like I should have had when I was a kid. And here comes this dog. And what happened, how this story navigated is we had a consultant stay 6 months with me because we wanted to sell the trash business. And he was taking in our movement, how we were doing stuff, and seeing some competitive bids of what it could be sold for. He said to me after 6 months, "You're the most scorekeeping transactional man I ever met in my life." He goes, "I've never seen a guy operate like you." He goes, "There's no personality for what the dollar is on everything." And that's how I had become. I went to his house and I saw a painting of 3 dogs with him and his wife. And I go, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, that's my family." And I gave him a look. He says, "You can't identify with that, can you?" He goes, "I will tell you, you better find something in this life to get you out of bed in the morning that doesn't pay you." And then, you know, as luck would have it, within 2 weeks, this pit bull, this dog, was shot and killed supposedly. And what I didn't know at the time was I had a dog that was shot. Not shot, hit by 2 cars. I shot, gunned. I got John over here. I'm thinking shooting.
I think baseball bats.
Yeah, I think
baseball bats, shooting.
At johnelite.com.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
So I missed my dog, John. I missed my dog, Kevin. I missed my dog. I didn't know this. It was all suppressed to me. So when that dog got shot, I felt like, man, that was it. I got to save this dog. And I believed the dog lived. I was the only person that believed it. I went on the media.
When you see it, there's no way that dog should have lived.
But I got tricky. I was tricky. I called up the city of New York from my trash business, and I called the administrative office that operates the New York City Animal Care and Control. And I called them up to talk about recycling. And they were only too happy to talk to me. And the administrator told me they do all this stuff. I said, "Who runs this place?" He says, "Richard Gentles." I threw him a quick connect on LinkedIn. He accepted my connect. And from that, I found that the dog was alive. And then I stayed on it.
What was that conversation like that you found that? How did that come about?
It was the greatest. It was, for me, it was
You
the
were
greatest.
told by a couple people that the dog had passed away already.
Absolutely. Everybody thought the dog died. So I call up the city of New York and I call up Renee. She gets the phone and I said, "Renee, I got to ask you a question outside the recycling." She didn't even ask me, "How did we get to this dog?" I go, "You got a dog in today that was shot by the New York City Police." She goes, "Honey, we got a lot of dogs." I said, "Her name is Star." She starts clicking into the computer. I could hear the keyboard. She says, "What do you want to know?" I said, "Did the dog really die?" She goes, "No, it's actually still alive. It's at the 5th Avenue vet." And I felt like I hit the Powerball again, man. And
Well, how did? Because I'm assuming New York City didn't want this bad press. The optics on it are very bad.
the optics are terrible, but to their credit, they thought the dog probably would die.
Right.
And having a dog lingering would tie up the fax line, would tie up the emails. They just put a statement out the dog died.
Well, for the people that haven't seen it, I mean, Star got shot right in the eye, correct?
Just below
Right-
the eye.
right just below the eye.
Yeah.
Get out of the way!
But one of blues in the eye anyway.
Yeah, one of the blues in the eye, and she lost a ton of blood. But this dog got shot, and now I know the dog is alive.
These dogs, these pits are. I had 3 pits.
Yeah.
One of my dogs was Hannah, and she got run over by a truck, crushed her head, looked like she was dead. She lost one eye, and she looked like the dog from the Little Rascals.
Yeah.
Petey.
Yeah.
The dog was amazing, and later on, the dog lived to about 17 or 18 even. And when she was dying, I refused to put her down. And I talked to the vet, and I was giving her steroids, giving her in and out of the hospital. It was like a family member.
Yeah.
So I kept the dog alive another 2.5 years because she lost her back legs, and then she was back again for about 2, and then finally I put it down at about 17 or 18, which was incredible. But they have a bad name, these pits, that they're vicious. It's the way you raise them, because I raised 3. Hey everybody, can you please write a comment about the animals are judged by their breed instead of by their behavior? Like I said, I'm an animal lover. People on the show here are animal lovers. I've raised every breed from Rottweilers to Dobermans to Pitbulls to Mastiffs, and they're some of the sweetest dogs around. So please give your opinion and comments, please, about dogs that are getting bad names because of their breed. Why aren't they judged by their behavior? All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a great week. They slept with their head on the pillow, under the covers, completely docile, not aggressive, very protective over my kids. So, and it's not one of them. I had 3 of them that were all 3 like this.
Yeah.
So when people say pit bulls, that's not true.
Well, you brought up the perfect example. Petey from the Little Rascals.
Yeah.
I mean, that dog was abused by those kids.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
by the
yeah,
Little
right.
Rascals, you know.
Pulling his face. And all.
Would you believe I got a picture of my great-grandmother with the real Petey?
Really?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. They used to take Petey around on tours, and my great-grandmother and my uncle, there's a picture of him and Petey. I'll show it to you. But Petey was poisoned. That's the Petey from the Little Rascals was poisoned. Again,
Who did it, Alfalfa?
Alfalfa was shot. So all those Little Rascals, they had some problems. But
Oh, there were a lot of street kids in those little
I know they
rascals,
were.
I know.
But
It's child star syndrome. You know, look at Drew Barrymore and all those people
they're
that get
a
into the
mess.
movies when they're young. And
they're a mess. All you got to do is watch. I was just watching that movie with Adam Sandler where he has the kid. And Todd Bridges is in there. He's got his nose full of cocaine and stuff. But going back, so you get this dog. How in the world? I can't believe they even brought it out for adoption.
They didn't. It's a long story. If people want to read the story, Nebraska man adopts dog shot by NYPD. Right. They didn't bring the dog out for adoption. They hid the dog. They gave the dog a new name and stuck her in Philadelphia.
Witness protection.
Witness protection. You know, a mob son winds up adopting dog that he had to break out of the witness protection program. So basically, it's this. I stay on top of this. This is the biggest deal in my life. Now, it was good for me because I had experienced everything I thought that would make me happy, and it was a big flat no, okay? The cars didn't make me happy. The restaurants, all of it didn't make me happy. But going after the dog made me happy trying to rescue this dog. So they put the dog off the grid, and they hide her in a sanctuary in Philadelphia under a new name, Shiloh. She's not up for adoption. They tuck her away. I stay on top of this. The dog has got lawyers representing her. She's got the defense fund, the Lexus Project defending her and doing stuff. The Mayor's Alliance steps in. So this dog has got a thick cloud of protection from anybody getting to know where she is or what she's doing. But I stay on top of it, and eventually I start to get leads. I start to press them by going to the media, by going on radio in the UK. I realize in the UK they think we're nuts with our guns, so I get on the radio there. And I start pressing, and people start questioning. There's a People magazine article. What happened to this dog? So eventually they release a photo of this dog, and it has her outside, and there's no front plates on the cars. So I say to myself, that's most likely Pennsylvania. It's close. The next mistake they make is they put a semi out in a parking lot, and they white out the door, but the US DOT number's out. I go to Safer Systems. I run the DOT. I see it's in Philadelphia. Now, all I have to do is get the couple hundred sanctuaries, vets, hospitals, daycares for dogs, and call up every day and say, do you have a brown and white pit bull missing an eye? And eventually, I wind up connecting with this dog.
So the mob's going to hire you next to find people that ratted them out that are in
Wow,
witness
that's
protection.
incredible.
Guys,
that's a lot of legwork. Right
guys,
there.
it took me months and months of my life. You know, I had a big trash business. We're running 6,500 customers. We're busy every day. I had a whiteboard brought in the size of the whole wall, and I put down every lead possible with this dog. Who had the dog? Who was involved with the dog? I'd get them to give me something. Like, as far as corrections, you know, I would tell my staff, don't give that inmate a cigarette. Next week it'll be a pack. The month after it'll be a hacksaw. So they made the mistake of giving me a photo. Then I'd build on that. Give me a video. So I started to realize what this dog is. And then I got the little yellow man back in 2012 off of Google Maps. And I couldn't figure out where this place was because it was a big industrial complex in Philly. Well, they made this place a sanctuary, but they just moved there and they didn't have a name yet. I eventually hit the Rosetta Stone. I figured out the matrix of this thing. And I did talk to the director and said, we got the dog. I said, look, I'm never going to stop going after this dog. And the Mayor's Alliance gave me permission to visit the dog. I would be able to take no photos. I'd be able not to say where the dog was. And they put out an article that was a feel-good story. Pitbull's #1 fan visits the dog. They don't say where it is. They put it out and they think it's going to go away. Eventually, I tell the city of New York that owned the dog. I said, look, you got to adopt a dog to me. My Jen stayed on this.
That's your girlfriend,
Yeah,
right?
Jen She's more than a girlfriend. She should be the wife already. I don't know what her holdup is on this, but she should be
Because you're
the wife.
smart.
Well, no. Listen, and John,
Jen, if you're listening,
she's going to
don't
be
do
mad at me today because I was never supposed to mix match labels. I was supposed to leave the house with the Gucci shoes, so I mixed
Really?
match. So you got
I got Gucci shoes. You ever see the ones that'll match that jacket perfectly? That's why I said, did you get that from my closet? If you want to leave it here, let me know.
I got Adidas sneakers on. This is an Adidas shirt, I think, too. So,
But I got to tell you, he's right. You could do investigation work. You could find Sammy Gavano. They call him Sammy the Bull. It's kind of like a dog. You can find.
Probably the same weight, too.
Yeah.
Sammy the Bull, start a dog.
Yeah.
Well, you do. Let me.
You're gonna get me in trouble, brother. I keep bad-mouthing Sammy, and listen, if he has any juice left, I'm gonna
He
know
ain't
what
got
to
no
behind my
juice
ear.
unless it's orange juice.
how do you
Someone
learn-
standing out in the parking lot by your car when we go out
Hey,
there.
how do you learn this stuff? You learn by watching inmates. You give an inmate a paper clip in a hole. He puts it into the lighter, into the electrical socket, the two pieces. He creates a little fire. He molds a bowl into a knife and sharpens it. And next thing you know, when you go in to check him, he's putting it to your neck and he's leaving. So you learn a lot of stuff that can be done. And I found this dog, and I wound up saying to them, you can't adopt a dog to anybody else because if she bit somebody else, it'd be a liability. I got to become the lawful owner of this dog. They put me through a ton of paperwork. I could never say I had the dog. I couldn't call her by her name. But eventually somebody in Nebraska saw me with this dog that's sharp, and he says, I know that dog. I've seen that dog on millions of hits on YouTube. And eventually, I had to put up an 8-foot fence. The story is deep. It goes a long rate. It took 8 months of my life. I don't want to say how much money it cost me to make this dog. I threw my whole personal life away.
This is going to be a series eventually, I think.
The dog.
Yeah, about the dog, really.
Yeah.
And what is that book you got?
So here's the thing. I can't crystallize stuff like Jen can. She watched what this dog did. And she watched the event of this dog. This dog was shot in the face. Her head was disfigured. And she looked different. But she never acted like an abused dog. And we would take her to Alzheimer's events. We'd take her to cancer walks. And she would get people in wheelchairs to just applaud. Wow. So this dog brought us friends from every walk of life. The audience needs to know this. Whether it be my next door neighbor, across the street neighbor who is a judge, whether it be a federal judge in Nebraska, whether it be the governor of Nebraska, whether it be a former hitman with the Gambinos, everybody has a place in their heart for Star because she'd never let what took her almost down get in her way. And so kids will read this book and they'll read about how Star was sometimes confronted with bullies. And this dog never gave in to that dark force of so many of us in our lives get hurt. And you know what? A lot of us guys probably needed to cry at the time. Jen had this book illustrated to show what Star had gone through. And her friend Petey, who's my dog, we rescued from a puppy mill. And that's what a friend's supposed to do, is pick up your spirits.
Yeah.
And that's a true
it's
friend.
funny, you got the coloring book here too.
Yes.
See, I am Star. First page I turned to, I just saw this picture of Star with like no eye. Put a smile on my face. I'm like,
That's because that's the only books you read.
well,
Man.
that's
Coloring books. But Charlie, there's something inside of you bringing you the journey that you went on to get this dog really came from a deep place. You called yourself your self-proclaimed transactional man.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're bringing Star out, and Star's touching so many lives. What inside you changed?
Because the amount of suffering I did, man. Listen, all my friends either went on to have successful lives or they went to prison. There was nobody in the middle. There was nobody that just went and became a Home Depot driver. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It was either that they went to prison indefinitely, they got killed. My friend Scott got shot in East New York, then was dead. Then everyone went to prison.
Yeah, I think that you had a hard life, and you transitioned it into
This
your life,
dog.
into saving this dog's life. And what you're also lucky about, and it needs to be said, is your wife to be, or your wife,
Yeah.
or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
That she got involved with you in this project, and she did something that, not only something good that everybody could see, but something good for you. She did something that's unique, that she stood by you through, helping you through this.
John, the thing is that, and I got to tell you this, Mike Dowd was the start of this, the Suffering Podcast. I rose up in the Department of Corrections. I went to a monastery and they wrote an article about me and my dog. And they said, here's a man who once was a homeless addict living in his van, had all the keys to the Department of Corrections. And I counted all the drugs in the hospital. But I could never tell anybody, hey, man, I got this pain I left back in New York. My life is really a shambles. Although I've been successful on paper and successful as far as what society says, beautiful credit score. I'm really a hurting unit, man. I never took care of that wounded kid. I mean, I got beat up when I was 8 years old by the guy who's supposed to be my primary caretaker, my father.
Yeah.
I was never, John, I was really never a tough guy. I was a guy that really wanted to hang out with my mother and go to the mall, Roosevelt Field, and go looking at clothes and do things. But I had to get tough, and I had to put that muscle on. And I had to prove I was somebody. And when you are somebody you're not, man, that's painful.
Roosevelt Field. That's where Charles Lindbergh
But
took off.
here's the thing, you recognize that. There's people that look in the mirror, and I've talked about them, and I'm not going to get into that now.
Yeah.
People I like, people I dislike. They look in the mirror and they don't know who they are. They don't want to be honest with themselves, so they're angry. And when they're angry, they'll take it out on other people day and night. But you don't do that. You
It's
do
like
the
a,
opposite.
it's like a bully syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
And he does the opposite, though. You try to help and you try to do the right thing, and you're honest. A lot of people won't talk like this.
John, look, I got a guy in my life that, talk about these guys that you were worth.
Yeah.
They bring a boxer up from Chicago. This guy's sleeping on a single little mattress. He's wiping his ass with newspaper, and he's training. And at first, he don't like me because I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm a big guy, 240. Yeah. And we wound up getting into some words, man. And he clipped me in the ribs, a middleweight. I never thought a guy could hit this hard. And I said to myself, my goodness, never judge the size of a dog. You don't know what's inside that dog.
Yeah, right.
So that was it. So come
it's
full
not
circle.
the size
man.
of the dog in a fight. It's the size of the fight in a dog.
This recording schedule we got's killing me. I don't even have time to make my own food.
Got to use HelloFresh. That's one of our sponsors. Matter of fact, if we use it now, we get 16 free meals and 3 free gifts.
Sounds like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us while we're in studio. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit.
HelloFresh delivers pre-portioned ingredients to your door, including farm-fresh produce that arrives within a week. So you get convenience without skimping on quality. Skip the trip to the grocery store, saving you all those waits in long lines and ensuring you don't waste money on excess food.
HelloFresh offers the flexibility you need to easily customize your order online or in the app. Easily change your delivery date, food preferences, and plan size, or skip a week whenever you need to.
This episode of The Elite Show is sponsored in part by HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com/Elite16 and use the code Elite16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts.
HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. #1.
But because of that dog, I've seen photos with you with Clarence Thomas.
Yes.
I've seen photos with you with Donald Trump.
Yes.
All because of one dog changing the way that you viewed your own life. It's got very little to do with the dog. It's got what that dog did to the inside of you.
This dog saved my life, guys.
Yeah.
Guys, I didn't feel as though I was redeemable, okay? I felt dirty. I felt like I cheated the system because I never told people the truth. I'm a recovering alcoholic addict. And the people in Nebraska that love me, they never knew that about me. And when it came out on the Suffering podcast, Charlie, you, the guy that we had back us, why didn't you tell us? I said, because maybe you wouldn't trust me working in the penitentiary. Maybe you wouldn't let me be on a CERT team. Maybe I wouldn't have got the promotion. Maybe I wouldn't have been treated the same. I had to take care of myself. And I did take care of myself. But this dog put me in a position. I remember telling Jen, we left in 2018. I think the president was in Omaha at the time. And I said, I'm going to go see Trump. She goes, honey. She goes, people have been waiting online for days to go see him. I said, I'm going to go. I go there. I know 3 governors. I know the governor who was Mike Johans, whose son was a buddy of mine. He was on the governor's roof. They wiped that off the internet. He was whacked out on drugs. He was on the governor's roof back in the day. Became a friend of mine. Ben Nelson, the current governor, I just sent him an email. Here's the last part of this. I sent Governor Ricketts an email. I called up his chief of staff at the governor's mansion. I said, hey, this is Charlie Cifarelli. I said, I got Star the dog. We had a nice talk. I said, look, Star's come a long way. Oh, we know about Star. I said, she's in this month's police magazine in New York. Can I send the governor an email and let him know? She goes, he'll see the email. Send it to us. And these are the things that happened. So I get to, at the time, the Governor Ricketts didn't know who Star was, but the other governors knew. And they let him know, you don't know Star the dog? And Katrina Pearson, who was Donald Trump's early She helped him with his rallies and stuff. I mean, she's a Kansas girl. They all know about this. This dog gave me a platform. She gave me a platform to reach a lot of people.
And it gave you a purpose in your life also.
Oh,
You have this inability to ask for help because that's something I totally understand.
yes.
This because as police officers, and I'm sure it was in your former life too. If they saw, I mean, the whole Sopranos was done on a mobster going to a therapist is ridiculous. You get found in the back of a trunk. Police and corrections, we go ask for help. All of a sudden, you're put on the rubber gun squad. You might as well get your balls cut off. But then you're able to. We've all been involved in therapy, and we all know the values of therapy. As a matter of fact, one of our sponsors is BetterHelp. And
I listen to him all the time.
BetterHelp is a wonderful
Great
thing.
thing. You can just call up. I mean, when you're even a little down, I know even now you're getting emotional, which is a good thing. You know, people, look at it as a weakness. I don't look at it as a weakness. I've been through therapy, like you're saying. I think it's a good thing because you started off helping this animal, this dog. But by you being honest, how many people you're helping are listening to the show.
John, John, I want to thank you for getting me on the show today. I want to just wrap my part on this one. This is important for me. I've died 1,000 deaths, man. I was there with the inmates when they had their last cup of coffee with their family and they were put in the electric chair. And anybody thinks they're tough. When the inmate's facing the electric chair and their time is running out, you feel it yourself. I thought I had done everything that would be okay. Star died February 19th of 2021 in my arms in front of Jen. She died. She got up and died. She had cancer. She was beating it. Then she just died. I spent 6 months in my home. I don't have to report to nobody anymore. And I didn't talk to nobody. And I didn't take no phone calls. I get a phone call from a guy that I thought would never be able to help me. A guy who I met by another New York City police officer that was a sergeant that's truly a hero. He was there after 9/11 and his brother died from 9/11. This is the kind of guys I run with. Either or. Dirtiest cop or the best cop.
Michael Dowd.
Michael Dowd gets a hold of me. He goes, "Hey, Charlie, text me first. You want to go to a mental health retreat in New Jersey?" And I jumped at it. And I told Jen, and she goes, "Why would you need to do that?" She goes, "You've been away from corrections a long time." She didn't know I was dying inside. Guys, I'm not a suicidal guy, but that's worse. Because if you have some suicidal tendencies, maybe somebody will help you. I was dying inside. And I went to this mental health retreat, and my life started. My life really started in September of 2021. I got connected with you guys.
That was the Blue Magazine?
That was the Blue. So the Blue Magazine, Mike is somehow connected with the Blue Magazine, and we've done a lot of things with the Blue Magazine. They have mental health retreats, which is a moment of silence that guards against blue suicide, police officers taking their own lives. And Michael's there, and that's when Mike and I met Michael Dowd, where he says, "I'm Dirty's cop." That's how he introduced himself because he's a maniac.
Hi, I'm Mike Dowd. I'm the dirtiest cop in New York City history.
Charlie's standing in the background, real quiet. Mike and I were actually doing a podcast that day, but we were also speakers, which Charlie had heard. Charlie reaches out to us, and that's. When I'm feeling some sort of way, now I know I can call Charlie, and me and Charlie will sit there and we'll bounce ideas off each other. And Charlie does the same with me. Because, again, it's bringing those people together who have common experiences, who have common damage in their lives. And it's an important thing.
It is important. We're all human beings, and we're not human doings. And even those that have been sentenced by the courts, remember, in this country, we have justice with mercy. It's not an eye for an eye. So a lot of times, me being a correctional officer, me being a prison official, I realized it's a thin line, but it's also we have to have mercy. We don't do back what has been done. So when people want to throw away the key, now in certain cases, some guys don't want to be rehabilitated, but I have been on multiple situations. I was the first correctional officer ever that testified in uniform as a character witness for a death row inmate because he felt as though that he rehabbed himself and followed the letters of the law for the mission statement. He wound up getting off death row. That wasn't my doing, but I did my part. I was asked to testify. I was subpoenaed, and I had to do my part.
Well, the problem is, not the problem. People look at people's situation, and they look at them to see their reaction in life, thinking it's the same way they react. We all react differently. So it doesn't really surprise me, because I know Mike Dowd very well now, that he's the guy that helped you.
You slept with Mike Dowd, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple times. So it doesn't surprise me because some people cover their pain in different ways, like you did.
Yeah.
Your own wife didn't realize you're dying inside because you cover it a certain way. And that's the thing about therapy, right? It teaches you to open it up in different ways. Some people, like when I got jammed up and I was talking on, and I'm involved in all the criminal activity, I joke a lot. I have a dry sense of humor. I don't mean it in a bad way. It's the way I release some of the pain I'm suffering. And people don't understand that until they know you. And when they know you, they know how why you're doing it, because you're letting it out a certain way. You let it out a certain way. You guys with Suffering Podcast and some of the people you interview is the same way. So, but at the end of the day, and just recently, I had a young guy that fought for a national title, UK, because you brought up the UK, and he was suffering a certain way. But at the end of the day, if you can help that one person or that one animal, or if you guys do, or if I do, or somebody does, it's just the way the next person, because I know whoever's listening to this, even if we reach one more person that says, hey, I'm not the only guy in this situation. Because everybody always thinks it's poor me. You know, we feel sorry for ourselves, even if we don't admit it. And we don't realize there's other people that are in the same situation.
Granted.
You know, Kevin and I say that all the time. When you're in a deep, dark place, that long, dark tunnel, when you're at the lowest point, you think you're all by yourself. You think that that pain is unto yourself. What you don't realize is there's people standing next to you, but it's so dark in there, you can't see those people. Yeah. So there's other people going through the suffering. And like you said, if this could help one person, that's all we're here for.
Yeah.
But this has brought you to a new mission in life.
Yes.
All right. So you're now rehabilitating dogs?
We rehabilitate dogs. We have the STAR Project, stands for Saving Those at Risk. It's a nonprofit 501c3. It has its own website, thestarprojectinc.org. We're doing that. I wrote a book that'll be coming out soon, 14th and 2nd, which is really a roadmap out of addiction. It really will help people. I haven't had a drink in 24 years. I haven't had a drug in over 30 years.
Congratulations. Good for you.
And coming from my father's home, which, you know the old mob guys. I mean, if you touch a drug, your word's no good.
Yeah.
I mean, I was deemed as someone that couldn't be questioned. You'll give it up because you got a drug problem. Yeah. But you know what? I hung in there. I was tough as far as I needed to be. But that's not the life I want to live, man. You know what makes me feel good? Little kids reading this book and knowing that this dog is impacting lives and swelling hearts with good feelings.
A year after Star's death.
God, this is good stuff. This is full circle, and I'm proud. Let me tell you something. You know, Jen's got a normal career. She's a medical recruiter. She hires a lot of doctors. She hires for all kinds of lines of work, and she's a North Philly girl. She could be tough, man. But I met her in Nebraska. But she sometimes says, "Man, you know, it's just one or the other." I mean, this is a beautiful thing that we could talk about something healing with guys that have seen the worst at this table.
A New Yorker and a Philly female living in Nebraska.
Yeah.
But she's from North Philly.
That's where she was born.
People don't realize where North Philly is. North Philly is not a nice place. As a matter of fact, that's where Bill Cosby's from, North Philly. And that's where the whole scene of the Fat Albert and the Junkyard Gang came from. That's North Philly.
That's a tough neighborhood.
It's a tough neighborhood.
A lot of locks on the door there.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people, a lot of women out there that are not going to like that you just brought up Bill Cosby because of what he's been accused of, convicted of.
Kevin said it, not me.
Yeah. But it's a shame because while he was, and I had heard this many times over the years, I got some friends who are very high level comedians, that's always the way he was. But prior to him getting this spotlight put on him, he was actually trying to help communities. I always applauded him for what he did. I don't like what he did with the women, but he was trying in some way. But he was doing.
Well, it's an illness. If you got dozens of women coming forward from every race, color, religion. So at first, I didn't really believe it either, to tell you the truth. But then when there's dozens, you got to say to yourself.
I mean, when he had the Cosby Show, he was like America's dad.
Yeah.
You know, and you didn't want to think he was doing any of that stuff.
I tried to explain that to my children. I said, you don't because when this was all coming out, they're like, what's Bill Cosby? They didn't understand it.
Jello.
Yeah, Jello, right. Jello
that was our commercial growing up as kids.
So, but you didn't understand it. So Jen being from North Philly, I imagine she puts you in line, keeps you in line a little bit.
Guys, man, she does. And you know what? I was never able to BS her in Nebraska. She said, you got a story, dude. She goes, you're not fooling nobody. And then she met my father just about 6 months after I got with her. And we went to New York. She saw his tattoos. She goes, these are jailhouse tattoos. You know that. This guy, my father was such a smooth talker, John. He was a man of few words, but he was so smooth. And he used to tell me all the time, here's what he said to me, and this is pretty much make you guys laugh. He said, look, you just do not, come here. He met Jen. And then after that, he said to me, years later when the dog got shot, he says, you're going to lose her. You're going to lose her. And you lose a girl of that quality, you're not going to replace her, okay? He says, back up off the dog. Don't talk about anything else. Make her the focus of your life. You rescued the dog. I don't need my last name in the papers anymore. Now stop with the dog. So that was about the most levity I had with my father towards the end of his life.
But you didn't know about his career
I did not know.
while he was alive.
What happened was I went to newspapers.com to write this book, and then my eyes couldn't stop. It had my father's name. It had these mafioso guys. It had French Connection. It had $100 million synthetic heroin ring in 1980 that the FBI is looking for in Bruglia. And I realized this is the guy that raised me. This is why this guy was so tight-lipped. Man, this guy always told me, shut up, don't let your left hand know what your right hand. I mean, he gave me good philosophy, but not living outside of his world.
Well, the thing is, you got to remember, too, and I say this to everybody, is a victim, right? Whatever way we're victims. You can either be a victim or you can make yourself not a victim, right? And, if you keep the mentality, they did the best they could for what they understood themselves.
Yeah.
So, and they pass it on. The only thing we can do is change that from going to the next generation, right? So we got to try our best that we don't make the same mistakes they did with us. And I look, again, no one's perfect, not them, not us, but we try to get to the perfect spot.
We try to. And John, he basically, when Star got shot, my mother used to be the communicator between us. My father said through her, he says, look, he says, there's so many more noble causes. A Labrador Retriever saving a kid out of a pond. This has a police officer, a drug addict, and a pit bull. Son, you'll never get this story off the ground. But when PIX made this one of their top stories 2 years after Star was shot in 2014, he had no choice but to concede. He goes, please stop, please. He was always paranoid with his name in the paper. You know the way.
Your father gave you a roadmap how you live your life.
Yes, he did.
Okay, so your father said, keep all your stuff inside,
Yes.
keep your personal life personal,
Oh, my
and
goodness.
don't let it out. What we're finding out now is maybe that wasn't the correct way, but it was the only way he knew. I'm not faulting your father for that. It was the only thing he knew.
But you're changing it because you are letting it out. There's the difference.
I'm letting it out, and my neighbor, who was a very, very respected realtor, he now heard the Suffering podcast. He goes, Charlie, you? Yeah, me.
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I had a past.
You see Anthony Ruggiano, my friend that does the
Yes,
talks? Okay.
yes.
And he had a drug and alcohol problem. He's worked with people for 30 years, addictions.
Yeah.
And he turned his life around 30 years ago, hasn't stopped. And, he's doing a lot of good things.
He's got a heck of a smile, right, John?
Yeah, and he comes from, really, his family were great people. I know him since I'm a baby, literally.
Yeah.
And he's a good guy. And sometimes you're just born into where he was born.
Yeah.
And I knew his father a different way. As a grandpa, as a guy that, you're watching all our games and he'd sit there in his chair. So, it's just, unfortunately, we are put on earth in certain places. Some people sitting on a mountain, some people under the sewers. And, when we grow up, you got to climb yourself out of that. And hopefully your message, which is such a positive message, not only about this dog Star, but about life in general. And, you're a good guy, man. I got to tell you, Charlie, we've been talking a lot.
Yeah.
And, and we have so much in common. And life's funny. Maybe you were put in this position to get in this position. So you got to look at sometimes our negative lives have a reason for it so you can do something positive, what you're doing now.
John, I've spent a lot of hours listening to you on your podcast. I mean, you've got a positive message with the kids, man. And what the public may or may not know, man, is that a lot of the guys you were involved with, that's the life they took on. I mean, it's a tough world. I mean, inmates stab each other. I mean, nothing good comes where violence is violence.
Yeah.
And you've turned that around, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity and the platform to be with four guys that probably at one time would never get along. I mean, you guys would be arresting us. And I would be...
Maybe not me.
Maybe not you.
Maybe not me.
No.
I mean,
No,
Dowd,
unless you crashed your car and you died, that's pretty much my interaction.
especially if it was at
says
midnight.
I was the
He was
criminal
probably
in East
sleeping.
New York. He was the cop. Then I became the correctional officer, and he was the inmate.
Charlie, I thank you so much for coming in today.
you.
Mike, I thank you very much for coming in, being a guest host.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Don't forget to visit johnelite.com. We got our baseball bats, Belladama cigars. Just put in the code ELITE10 for 10% off. This was a great interview again, John.
Yeah, it was really nice. Anybody that's looking for me, True John Elite on Instagram, check out our website. Like Kevin said, Check out Mike, their podcast, and Kevin's Suffering Podcast. Charlie, we got your information one more time. Can you tell everybody?
Charlie at the starprojectinc.org, or follow Star on Star the New York Pitbull, and you can always message us.
All right. Thank you, everybody. God bless America.